You know how sometimes the worst things can be a blessing in disguise? Well, my HSG was one of them. My HSG examination I had at my very first IVF clinic, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know all about that. They said it wouldn't be too painful, but they were going to put me under anyway. And I remember, I usually have a pretty high pain threshold, so I remember actually talking to the doctor and saying, do I really have to be under general anesthetic? Couldn't we do it, you know, in a different way? Because I've been nauseous from general anesthetic before. Anyway, long story short, they put me under. HSG is where they put dye up your uterus, and then they try to make it go up your tubes as well. And the idea is that if your tubes are open, then the dye will go through them and out into the abdominal cavity. And on an ultrasound, the doctor will be able to see that. So that's when they are then certain that your tubes are open and functioning, and that you should be able to fall pregnant. As I woke up in so much pain. Yeah, it was a very unpleasant type of pain as well. I don't think I'm usually a shrinking violet, but that was just really uncomfortable. And I woke up to a bad diagnosis as well. Apparently the doctor wasn't able to see the dye, so they figured my tubes were blocked. So I was in pain. I had received a bad diagnosis. I was in a very fragile state, and because of the pain I kept asking for more painkillers, and I was bleeding quite heavily as well. It literally felt as if, you know, trying to unblock those tubes, the doctor had ripped me to shreds. That's honestly what it felt like. And again, I hear that that is not usual, and for most people it's not nearly as painful as it was for me, but yeah, unfortunately for me it was. And whatever painkillers they were given me made me drift in and out of consciousness, so I could sort of hear things but was a bit too drowsy to respond. And I could hear the nurses complain about how they now had to stay behind in theatre with me. They had made plans for the afternoon. I was the last patient of the day, and they were, well, bitching about me, going, you know, it can't be that painful, blah, blah, blah. And I was lying there. I was in pain, I was barely conscious, I had received a bad diagnosis, and I was just unable to respond really, and just hoping and praying that my husband would come soon. Hubby did turn up eventually, and that made the nurses stop. And yeah, he got me home, and when we came home I just said, look, I'm really sorry, but I don't ever want to go back to that place. And to my big surprise, he was like, oh, thank God. I was feeling the same way, but I didn't want to tell you. Turns out he had a really funny gut feel about the place as well. Apparently when he was dropping off some of his sperm samples, some of the staff were quite rude to him. But he didn't want to tell me because he didn't want to burden me with his problems, which compared to all the examinations that I had to go through weren't really that big a deal, he thought. So yeah, that was it at that first IVF clinic. It was the final straw that broke the camel's back. We ended up quickly dismissing another clinic, or leaving that one, and then quickly dismissing another clinic, and then at clinic number 3, we fell pregnant on first cycle. So it was the best thing we ever did to leave clinic number 1. And it was the HSG examination that really motivated us to leave. Did you have your HSG done? What was it like for you? Let me know in the comments below. Love and baby dust, Lena.